It started with something so small, so seemingly harmless, that most people wouldn't have thought twice about it. But for John Kennedy, it was the beginning of a battle that tested his patience, dignity, and sense of justice. Imagine waking up every morning, ready to go to work, only to find your driveway blocked by someone else's car, a car that didn't belong to you, your guests, or even your neighbors. That was John's reality for months, thanks to one of the most notoriously entitled neighbors in his homeowners association, a woman the entire neighborhood quietly referred to as Ho Karen. Job had lived in his quiet suburban community in Clearwater, Florida, for 5 peaceful years. He was the kind of neighbor everyone liked, the man who shoveled the elderly lady's sidewalk in winter and put up festive lights during the holidays. But things changed when a new homeowner moved in 2 houses down. Karen Whitmore, a middle-aged woman who wore her whole title like a crown and carried her clipboard like a sword. Within days of moving in, she had sent emails about people's trash cans being visible too long, and started leaving notes about non-compliant lawn heights. She was, in every sense, the textbook definition of a self-appointed rule enforcer. The problem began one evening when John came home from work to find a silver Lexus parked diagonally across his driveway. At first, he assumed it was a delivery mistake or a guest visiting a neighbor. He left a polite note under the windshield asking the owner not to park there again. The next morning, the car was gone, and John brushed it off. But 2 days later it was back, this time, blocking his driveway completely. When John saw Karen standing on her porch sipping coffee, he walked over and politely asked if she knew who the car belonged to. She smirked and said, "Oh, that's mine. The HOA hasn't assigned visitor parking yet, and your driveway's the closest to the entrance. It's temporary." Her tone made it clear she wasn't asking for permission. John tried to reason with her, explaining that he needed his driveway clear to get to work. But she waved him off, saying, "You'll survive. Don't make a fuss over a parking spot." At first, John tried to be patient. He didn't want conflict, and he didn't want to make enemies. He left friendly reminders. He emailed the HOA. He even offered to help find a compromise, maybe designate temporary parking spots for overflow. But Karen, drunk on her self-importance, refused to listen. In her mind, HOA rules applied to everyone but her. Weeks passed, and the situation escalated. Sometimes she'd leave her car there overnight. Other times, she'd move it for a few hours, only to park it back in the same spot. One morning, when John had an emergency and needed to drive to the hospital for his sister's car accident, Karen's car was blocking his driveway again. That was the breaking point. Furious and desperate, he called a towing company and had her car removed. When Karen returned and found her driveway empty but her car gone, she erupted. She marched to John's door, banging furiously. "You had no right," she screamed. "You can't tow an HOA board member's car. I'll have you fined for this." John, exhausted and still shaken from his morning emergency, calmly replied, "Karen, you blocked me in during a family emergency. I had no choice." She stormed off, threatening legal action and community sanctions. Days later, the HOA sent John a warning letter claiming he had violated community harmony guidelines by having a neighbor's vehicle towed without appropriate mediation. But this time, John wasn't going to back down. He documented every incident, photos, timestamps, even copies of his polite notes. He attended the next HOA meeting with his folder of evidence, and when he calmly laid out his case in front of the board, including proof that Karen had violated multiple parking ordinances, the room went silent. The president of the HOA, embarrassed by how Karen had abused her position, sided with John. The official record stated clearly, Karen's parking was unauthorized and a violation of community rules. You'd think that would have been the end of it, but not for Karen. 2 weeks later, she did it again. Same car, same driveway, same arrogant grin as she walked away. "Go ahead and call the tow truck again," she mocked. "You'll regret it." John didn't say a word. He just pulled out his phone, called the same towing company, and within 30 minutes, her Lexus was gone again. This time, she had to pay double the towing fee, plus storage costs. When she confronted him later, red-faced and livid, he simply said, Maybe now you'll respect other people's property." The story spread quickly around the neighborhood. Some residents secretly applauded John for standing up to her. Others were shocked that she'd pushed things that far. Eventually, the whole board voted to remove Karen from her position for abuse of authority and harassment of a fellow homeowner. Months later, when asked about it, John said something that stuck with everyone: "Standing up for yourself doesn't mean starting a fight up. It means refusing to be walked over." His story became a quiet lesson throughout the neighborhood, a reminder that kindness doesn't mean weakness, and that even in a community full of rules, respect is the one that matters most. Today, John's driveway stays clear, he still waves to his neighbors, still helps with holiday lights, and still believes in the good in people. As for Karina, she sold her house and moved out of the community a few months later, leaving behind a reputation no one wanted to inherit. In the end, this wasn't just a story about a driveway. It was about boundaries, literal and emotional. It was about how one man's quiet strength restored balance in a place where entitlement tried to take over. And perhaps most importantly, it was a story that reminded everyone watching online that sometimes, the most powerful way to handle a bully, a broken bar, is to let consequences do the talking.